And as you might expect, fans are divided over whether the Game of Thrones grand finale was the right way to end the story. However, there's no denying the show's impact on pop culture as a whole. Zuleika Nathu has more on that, and we promise no spoilers.
Not surprisingly, there's been a lot of mixed reaction to the Game of Thrones series finale. Fans have been voicing their discontent for weeks now with the final season, and the finale was really no different. Just the experience of watching this series over the last 8 seasons has shown that it was so unique in that we might not again see, not for a long time, this collective type of audience viewing week by week, episode by episode in such large numbers.
It's a testament to the show that it really brought in a huge audience that would never usually touch that kind of stuff and might not read a novel about that sort of stuff or think they'd watch a TV show or movie about it because the characters were so compelling, because it had these huge twists that often were really going against the grain of what you expected by killing characters that you think are safe.
Fans might not have to say goodbye to Westeros just yet, though. George R.R. Martin, who wrote the books on which Game of Thrones was originally based, said in a blog post that there are currently 3 spin-offs, he called them successor shows, under development at HBO. He wouldn't say what they're about, but judging from the way that a lot of the character storylines were tidied up, neatly packaged at the end of the series, there's still a lot of room and a lot of possibilities for them to return in the future. Zuleika Nathu, CBC News, Los Angeles.
If you've got a basketball fan and a Game of Thrones fan in your home, then you might have a problem. Or maybe you're one of both yourself, because last night was likely a really noisy one. You think that's hard to watch? Then consider the fact that the finale for the Game of Thrones essentially clashed with the same timing as the Raptors playing in what was basically a must-win situation. So what do you do if you want to watch both? Do you double up on screens? Do you try to go back and forth between the two? Well, our next guest was in this very same situation. Let's bring in one superfan who had to balance both blockbuster events last night. Oriana Denucci is a dedicated Game of Thrones fan, and she's also a Raptors fan. She joined us today in Toronto. And Oriana, before we get into any of this business, I have to tell people, and you specifically, absolutely no spoilers.
No spoilers, I swear.
I don't know if you heard that boom, boom, but that's what you're going to get if there's any spoilers. Only because we know that not everyone got to watch last night. Maybe people were in the same situation as you and they couldn't decide what to do.
Yeah.
So which did you pick out of the 2 last night?
Okay, so it was Raptors from 7 to 9 p.m. And then as soon as the 9 p.m. mark hit, switched right to HBO, to Game of Thrones. And then kind of just following Game of Thrones and then following the Raptors via Twitter the rest of the way.
And was part of the thinking that you knew there could possibly be more Raptors to come, but there weren't going to be any more dragons to come?
That's kind of it, I think. Even though it was like an absolutely crucial game, and then it ended up being an actual nail biter at the very end, which was kind of unexpected, to be frank. Like a double overtime is insane. Yeah, I think there was only really one choice, at least for Game of Thrones. I mean, like, to watch it live. So
tell me, what is it about the Game of Thrones? You know, again, without giving away much of what happened this season or even last night, what is it that drew you in? What do you love so much about it?
I started watching it a while back. I think it was probably just the characters. I fell in love with Arya and Daenerys. They were amazing. Jon was just the characterization and how they wrote each of the characters and the character development and arcs over the seasons have been really impressive. And I think the cinematography is really great. So I think the show overall is really fantastic, and the writing is what draws people into the show for sure.
Well, every episode is almost like a movie in and of itself with the amount of production that goes into it. But this season, as you probably know, they got a lot of criticism that the characters weren't really following the storyline they would have in the previous seasons, that the show writers had gone into a direction that the fans didn't like. Were you, as a super fan, satisfied with the way things ended last night?
I was satisfied. Yeah, I think I'm one of the few people that were, but I actually really liked it. I do agree that there was some moments in the season, especially this season, that were a bit jarring and kind of we didn't see it coming in a way that they would have built it up properly. And I think that that's a lot of what people feel over the course of the season. But I was really satisfied with the ending. In Game of Thrones fashion, there are shocks and there's some low moments and sad moments. But I think it ended off on a pretty nice note, at least for my palate. I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, that's good to hear, because there have been a lot of complainers out there. Okay, so before we let you go, Ariana, the Raptors are still going, so what do you hope for them? And then how are you going to keep your Game of Thrones love going now that the show's over?
Yeah, for the Raptors, it's just now there's no other, show that's vital to watch, so I'll probably just be watching every game without feeling guilty and switching channels. And then for Game of Thrones, I just finished rewatching the entire series before this season came out, so I think I might in a few years go back to doing that again, just to relive some moments.
Yeah, I really don't think you're alone on that. Ariana Danucci, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Ariana is a dedicated Game of Thrones fan, and she chose it last night at 9 p.m. after she finished watching 2 hours of The Raptors.